So this is how weird I am. I get the cheddar dog, throw away the container, throw away the bun, just eat the dog. I'm weird. Okay. So let's talk about the Meepo NLS and my first impressions of the board. First and foremost, I love this skateboard. I'm happy to announce that all my worries about not being able to ride a skateboard at my age were unfounded. I was actually able to get used to the board very quickly and have enjoyed riding it every single day. Some of the things that I love about this board, number one, include the fact that this is a perfect size board for me. I'm a taller guy, 6'4". I'm over 200 pounds, and this board did not feel small underneath me. I felt stable, it felt smooth, it was kind of a perfect ride for me. And secondly, my research really paid off. I said I wanted a smooth, stable ride for commuting to work, and that's exactly what I got. The 100mm wheels, the flexible bamboo deck, really made a smooth ride when I'm going back and forth to work. And yes, I am actually riding this board to work every day, and I love it. Especially on some of the roads we have around here, because there's a lot of cracks and potholes and chunks out of the concrete, and it just can be kind of tough. This board has handled it beautifully. And one of the surprising things I liked about this board is the fact that I bought it, as I said, I wanted a board to commute to work, but I like riding this board like all the time. It's so much fun. It's such a blast. It's just been a joy to have, so it was a good purchase for me. A couple of things I wished were a little bit better on the board. Number one, the control of the board was really hard out of the box for me, and I don't know how quite to explain it. It was hard to turn. For some reason I couldn't get it to turn very easy, but once I did start to turn, it seemed to turn too easy and I would fall off the board. So it was both hard to turn and yet easy to turn at the same time. I don't know how to describe it, but what I can tell you is through a couple videos I saw online, they recommended replacing the bushings on the board. And that's what I did. I took the stock bushings out, which are really, really tall. I replaced them with orangutan purple bushings. They call them orangutan nipples. The purple ones are a medium hardness and the yellow ones are a stiffer hardness. And I tried the purple at first and then I went to the yellow, and that seems to be perfect. But what I can tell you is, even with the purple ones, the instant I put those new bushings on the board, it was easier to ride. It was stable. I could turn it easily. I wasn't falling off the board. It didn't wobble at high speeds. So if you have a Meepo NLS, get some orangutan bushings, purple or yellow, whichever is better for your size and weight. The other thing that I don't want to say I didn't like, but I can confirm because I heard about it in other reviews and other videos, is the ESC. And the ESC stands for Electronic Speed Control. That's what controls the motors on the board and how fast it goes and how quickly it responds and that sort of thing. And there are two basic manufacturers of ESCs for motorized skateboards. You have Hobby Wing, which everybody says is the smoother of the two, and the Li Ying, which is on the Meepo NLS, and everybody says that's the jerkier of the two, and essentially they're right. Although I don't want to call it jerky because it's kind of hard to describe, but if you have the remote and you're turning the wheel to go faster, there's kind of a dead zone at first where you turn the wheel and nothing happens, and all of a sudden at 1 millimeter further it grabs and it starts going. And if you're not prepared for it, that can throw you off the board, and people call that lag. I call it a dead zone. It's basically the same thing. The brakes are even worse because there's the dead zone, but there's not a smooth deceleration like there is kind of a smooth acceleration going forward. There are really two speeds of brakes. Once you get past the dead zone, you have soft braking, and then you have really, really hard braking, and there's nothing in between. So you have to be really, really prepared to brake on this board, or else you're going to end up going off the front. Luckily, I have gotten used to this and I have found the answer. And the answer is bend your knees. If you bend your knees, even to a point where it seems like you're bending them too much, that will take care of the jerkiness and the acceleration and the deceleration. And if you're accelerating, you're going to bend your front knee more. And if you're decelerating, you're going to bend your back knee. I've gotten really, really comfortable on this board doing that. So that's my overall impressions. Let's go look at the bushings and how I put those in. So first off, you can see a difference in the height right here. The orange bushings on the right are the original bushings that came on the NLS. What I switched to were the orangutan bushings, the nipples that you see on the left. The purple ones were the first one I went with. Like I said, they were still a little too soft, so I switched to the yellow ones. But just the height difference alone is striking and does make a difference. The next thing I'll show you is something I learned through a video that's on YouTube, and you can find it out there, is the way that these orangutan bushings go on. It's very specific. You'll notice that the bushings have a flat or a square edge on one side of it, but it has a beveled edge on the other. The flat side always goes towards the truck itself, and then the beveled side always goes towards this washer. Okay, and the washer goes on next, and then the nut comes on and presses against the washer. The other thing to notice is that the washer itself has a stamp on it on one side and no stamp on the other. And this no stamp side goes towards the bushing itself. So the way it goes on the spindle itself is flat side towards the truck, washer over top of it with the stamp facing out. Let's get it the right way, with the stamp facing out, and then the nut over top of it. And you'll see how that works in just a second when I show you the board itself. So here you can see how the bushing looks on the skateboard itself. The bushing goes over the spindle, the flat side of the bushing goes towards the truck here, the beveled edge is facing out with the washer on top of it, with the stamp side of the washer facing out, and the nut goes on top of it. Replacing it is fairly simple. You just loosen up that nut, take off the washer, the bushing, and then you wiggle this truck loose and pull it off, and then you can get to the other side as well and replace the bushing that's on the underneath side. That's the front truck. Now the back truck is a little bit trickier. Now this is the back truck, and it has the same bushings on it. The one thing I forgot to mention on the front truck is not only do you have to take this bolt off, but there's 4 bolts around the base of the truck where it mounts to the board you have to take off, and then the front truck comes off. But on the back truck, because this is connected to the power cables that connect up to the hub motors themselves, you have to take this guard off. There's 2 screws here, and then you also have to loosen up the ESC cover, which is 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you loosen those up, you don't have to take the ESC all the way out, but just loosen it up enough so that the cables are loose enough, and then you can wiggle this truck off, put the new bushings on, put it back on. It's a fairly simple operation, just more bolts to take off when you're replacing the bushings on the rear truck with the hub motors. Okay, headed to work. When I would take the shuttle and walk, I've timed it in the past. It took me 25 minutes to get from my door to the front door of my building. Let's see how long it takes me on my stopwatch to get to work. Starting now. Thank you, sir. Okay. That took 6 minutes. 6 minutes down from 25. I kind of like this board.